Hi, Taylor. How are you doing today? I'm good. I think as I explained before when we met previously that this room was very, very difficult to hear. A lot of fans going on. Your voice up as much as possible. And also, if you can sit close to the microphone, that'd be great. Okay. And if you need to take a break anytime, water, whatnot. Now, Taylor, how are you feeling today?
Nervous.
Nervous? And why are you feeling nervous?
Just because it's reliving the most chaotic, traumatic day.
Now, Taylor, how old are you?
19.
And previous to today, do you recall us meeting and speaking? And why did we do that?
In this case?
Did we go over your testimony? And did I tell you to just tell the truth and nothing but the truth? Did I tell you what to say
No.
today? Are you prepared to testify today? Do you go to school? And if so, where do you go?
I go to East Carolina University in North Carolina.
And other than in school, you live in Shelton, Connecticut. And who do you live there?
I live with my parents.
And what year are you in school?
I'm going into my junior year.
And what is your major?
I'm a criminal justice major.
What are you doing for the summertime? Are you out of school?
Yeah, just babysitting right now while I'm home.
How long have you been living in Shelton for? Your whole life?
My whole life.
What high school did you attend?
Shelton High School.
And what year did you graduate Shelton High School?
2023.
Directing your attention to the year of 2022, were you a student at Shelton High School at that time?
Yes.
And what year were you?
I was a junior.
So you were a rising senior. And I'm going to direct your attention specifically to May 14th of 2022. Do you remember that day and why?
I do. It was probably the worst day I've ever experienced. It was just a lot. And I lost a very close friend that day.
You can direct your attention to the nighttime hours, May 14th of 2022. Do you need a moment?
Sorry.
Yeah, just breathe. Take a sip of water if you need to. Directing your attention to the nighttime hours of May 14th of 2022. Do you recall where you went that night?
To Tyler Rich's house.
And how did you know to go to Tyler Rich's house?
My boyfriend at the time called me and I was told to go.
And who was your boyfriend at the time?
Matthew Lockovich.
Matthew Lockovich?
Mhm.
And were you familiar with Tyler Rich's house? Had you been there previously? About how many times previously had you been there?
Just like a handful of times, not too many.
Did you go to school with Tyler Rich? Same grade?
He was a grade above me.
And how did you get to Tyler Rich's house that night?
I drove there. It
And do you recall what car you drove?
was a BMW.
When you got into the basement area of Tyler Rich's house, how many people did you see there?
20, 25, maybe.
And did you recognize everyone there?
Majority, some of them, yeah.
Most of them, if not all of them, attended what high school?
Shelton High School.
Was there anyone there who did not attend Shelton High School?
Not that I know of.
Can you give us some names of people that you recognized or that you saw there when you got there?
Matlock, Tyler Rich, Ricky, Fiola, Faison, Lily Lombardi, Izzy Silvis.
Did all of those individuals go to Shelton High School? Did you see an individual by the name of James McGrath?
I did.
I'm showing you what's been marked as States 57. Taylor, do you recognize who this is in that States?
Yeah, that's Jimmy.
And so you refer to him as Jimmy?
Yeah.
Now, did Jimmy go to Shelton High School?
No, we went to Fairfield Prep.
How did you know Jimmy?
Our parents were friends when we were younger. I was friends with Rosie as well.
And Rosie's his sister. Did you hang out with Jimmy? Did you see him at other parties, even though he didn't go to Shelton High School? Did you see him quite often?
Yeah.
And were there times that you would go over to the McGrath household to see Rosie or anyone else? And would you see Jimmy there?
When I was younger, I would go over there. Yeah.
And looking at what Jimmy is wearing in this photograph, do you recognize this is the outfit that he was wearing the night of May 14th?
Yeah.
Do you know where this photograph was taken?
Yeah.
Where was this photograph taken?
Nikki DeJesus' house.
And you're familiar with Nikki DeJesus?
Yeah. I used to work for Nikki's dad, and we're family friends.
Had you had occasion to go to Nikki DeJesus' house?
Yeah.
And is that the basement of his house in that photograph depicted in 57?
Yeah.
Now, when you got down, when you were in the basement of Tyler Rich's house, did you observe any drinking going on?
Yeah, some people were drinking.
Some people were drinking?
Mhm.
Do you recall what they were drinking?
I would say it was just like beer or seltzers, not anything like crazy.
Were there any kegs there?
Not that I know of.
Did you drink at all when you were in the basement of Tyler Rich's house?
At the time, I drove there, so I don't believe I did. It's possible I could have had one, but it would not have been any more than that.
Other than drinking, was anyone doing anything else? Was there talking? Was there music being played? Were there drinking games going on?
Yeah, there was music being played. Everyone was just talking, hanging out. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary that we don't usually do.
Was there a larger crowd than normal on that night, or would you say that was pretty average?
I would say it's average. I mean, there might have been a couple more people than usual, but not by much.
When you say a couple more people, did you recognize people that were in different grades than when you were in?
Yeah.
Anyone in the grade above you or anyone in the grade below you?
There was majority of the grade above me, a couple people maybe the year below me, but
And you had said that Tyler Rich was the grade above you,
Yeah.
so more of his friends
Right.
than
Yeah.
people you associated with. Now, amongst the people that you saw there in the basement, did you happen to see individuals by the name of Griffin Marcinzik and Ryan Hines?
a little later, yeah.
Okay, explain that.
I remember I was hanging out downstairs with my friend Lily and Matt. We were just talking, and then I remember they ended up coming to Tyler Rich's not too long after that, and I was told that there was a fight previously that they were involved in. That's why they were coming.
Okay, I'm going to take you a little bit back. How are you familiar with both Griffin and Ryan?
I went to high school with them. I would hang out with them on occasion.
Are they your year?
No, they're a year younger than I am.
And so you indicated just now that they arrived at the party a little bit later on. And you also indicated that you were made aware that they were in a fight. Without going into too much about what people said, how did you learn that they were involved in a fight?
I think people were just talking about it downstairs, and I had overheard a conversation that was going on.
To your knowledge, do you know how Ryan and Griffin arrived at Tyler Rich's house, how they got there?
I believe Charlie Connery picked him up.
Charlie Connery? When you arrived at Tyler Rich's house, was Charlie there?
I believe so, yeah.
So at some point, to your knowledge, did Charlie leave to go pick up those two boys?
Yeah.
Now, you had said that you had heard they were involved in a fight. At some point at the party, were you standing close enough to Ryan and Griffin to overhear, without going into what they said, but to overhear what they were talking about regarding this fight?
No.
To your knowledge, at that point, you may know now, but at that point, did you know where that fight had occurred previously? And to your knowledge, at that time, did you know who they were fighting with at the party previously?
No, I don't think so.
Do you know if the people they were fighting with were members of Shelton High School or a different school?
I knew it was at St. Joe's kids. I didn't know who exactly.
Okay. So you gained knowledge that the people that they were fighting, Griffin and Ryan Hines were fighting, were from St. Joe's. Do you know how many individuals they were fighting with?
Not at the time. I didn't know.
You learned that later. Now, at some point, did you learn what St. Joe's kids were involved in the fight?
Yeah.
And if you can name those individuals.
Tyler DaSilva, Jack Snyder, and Raul Valle.
Now, are you familiar with Tyler DaSilva? How are you familiar with Tyler DaSilva?
We were at a party one time together.
And Jack Snyder, how are you familiar with Jack Snyder?
I just know of him. I don't know too much about him.
And had you ever seen him at a previous party before?
Jack Snyder, no.
And Raul Valle, are you familiar with him?
Yeah.
And how are you familiar with him?
I think we were at a party one time together.
Does Raul Valle go by a different name that you know of?
Lito.
And were you introduced to him as Lito?
That's how I knew of him, yeah.
On a previous occasion? Do you happen to see the individual here today in court?
Yeah.
Please point him out and describe what he's wearing.
They're in a black suit.
The record reflect, Your Honor, the witness, rather, is identifying the defendant in court.
Record has identified Mr. Valle. Thank you.
Taylor, at some point while you were inside the basement, did you hear something that prompted you to go outside?
Yes.
Okay. And what did you hear?
The first time?
Yes.
So I was outside the first time because it was hot in the basement. So I had went outside, and that's when the car drove by the first time.
Okay. Just so I can understand you. So you're indicating that at some point you left the basement area and went outside because it was hot?
Yeah.
While you were standing outside, were you with John? Were you outside with anyone else when you went outside?
I think I was with Matt.
Matt Lockovich?
Yeah.
Were you the only two outside at that point?
I think there were other people outside towards the front. I was still by the cellar doors at the time.
And you just indicated that you heard or saw a car drive up or drive by. Explain that.
So at that time, I'd heard about the fight, and we were by the cellar doors, and people were talking towards the front, and Matt had walked over there. So I had followed him a little bit towards the front of the yard, and that's when the car drove by.
So I'm going to refer you to behind you. So behind you states my particular pointer that you have here, direct point members of the jury. Where are you and Matt standing outside? Cut off. Right. Okay. When you say cut off, like and the individuals you said to very where okay. And the vehicle that pulled up, are you able to demonstrate where they pulled up? It was like over here somewhere. So look at that. Initially, the pointing to the back area of you, standing in the middle of the grass area, which was the back. The vehicle pulled up right hand side. Right.
Court will take the information on the record. Thank you.
Now, Taylor, are you able to name the other individuals that you saw as you indicate on State 52 in the grassy area approaching the vehicle?
I think it was just Ricky Fiola, Tyler Rich are the only really two I remember going up there.
And do you recall what type of vehicle pulled up?
A Honda Pilot.
I'm going to be showing you listed marked as State 30. Taylor, does State 30 resemble, or is that the vehicle that pulled up in front of your house?
Yeah.
And explain what the lighting was during that time. Were you able to see clearly? Obviously, it was nighttime, but were there any lights that were illuminating the area?
It was dark outside, but it wasn't dark to the point where you couldn't see who was in front of you. There was lights in the driveway, flashlights.
And when you say flashlights, do you mean people had their phones?
Yeah,
Used
like
the
from
lights
your
on their
phone.
Now, how many individuals were withdrawn? At some point, when you saw this vehicle pull up, did you notice anyone else from inside the basement coming outside to approach the vehicle?
I think maybe a couple people might have come outside. I don't know exactly who.
From withdrawn, where you were standing, did you ever leave that area to get closer to the vehicle, or did you stay in that location?
I stayed out there for maybe a couple seconds and then went back inside after that.
So from your vantage point, were you able to see how many individuals approached the vehicle?
No.
Were you able to hear anything from what was being said from the people that were outside the vehicle or anyone from inside the vehicle? Were you able to see who was inside the vehicle at this point?
Not at that point.
Did you get a sense at all of what the vibe was or the atmosphere was when you witnessed the Shelton kids from the basement coming outside and approaching the car.
It didn't seem like they were like extremely mad or trying to cause a problem. It's not like they came sprinting outside and chasing after the car. They walked out of the basement casually and went up to the car, or went up to the front yard at least.
And you couldn't hear anything that was being said. And you said you stayed outside for a couple of seconds and then you went back into the basement. And why did you do that?
I didn't see a need to stay outside. Went back inside.
At some point, did you learn of who was in that Honda Pilot?
Yeah.
And from what you were made aware, who was in the Honda Pilot?
Tyler DaSilva, Jack Snyder, and Lito.
Anyone else that you know who was in that pilot?
I know for sure.
And at some point, withdrawn. You said you had gone into the basement. Did you see the vehicle leave that area at any point before you went back into the basement?
No, I don't think I saw it leave. No.
And at any point in time, did you go back outside?
I did.
Okay. And why did you go back outside?
People started going outside. I am pretty sure that someone said something that like caused me to go outside. I can't recall exactly. And I went outside, and that was when people started walking up the street, and I started walking up there as well.
Okay. So I'm going to take you back a little bit. So you had said you went back outside. At any point in time, did you see the Honda Pilot driving up and down the street?
No.
Okay. When you went back outside after something prompted you to go out there, you indicated that you saw people walking down the street. What people walking down the street?
Like the Shelton, the kids that were at Tyler Rich's.
Can you recall who was walking down the street?
Tyler Rich, maybe Matt, Ricky, and those are the only ones I really know for sure.
And you then indicated you started walking down the street.
Yeah.
I'm going to be showing you, may I approach the witness, Your Honor? Stage 1. So if the red dot here is Tyler's house, walking out the how far down Glen Drive? Did the vehicle drive down towards farmhouse? Yep. How far down Laurel Glen? So in the red dot that you quarter way down Laurel Glen, do you recall what was around you when you stopped? It was just like, I remember who was with you at that time? I was by myself. And from your vantage point, were you able to see anything from Glen or farm? I could see the car somewhere over here. Right when it's coming up. Standing by. Did you see any of the Shelton High School kids? Anyone from the party running after you?
No.
Taylor, I'm going to be showing you what's been marked as States 44. I'm going to ask you if you've seen this video before. Just play it in its entirety. Have you seen this video that's depicted in States 44 previous to today?
Yeah.
Okay. And from your recollection of what you observed on that night, did you see any of that happening from your vantage point?
No, I think they might have already been up there when I started walking. I didn't see that.
So the kids that you saw running up after the vehicle, you don't personally remember seeing that? Okay. And did you hear in States 44 something being thrown at the vehicle? Do you recall seeing or hearing that? Previous to the car leaving Laurel Glen in front of Tyler Rich's house, do you recall any things being thrown at the vehicle or things being thrown out of the vehicle from where you were standing before you went back into the basement?
Yeah, I remember things were being thrown from the car at the car. It was just like a play thing.
And is that before the car drove down Laurel Glen? Now, how long would you say you were in the area you depicted in States 52, where you indicated you walked up towards the vehicle? How long did you stay in that area for?
Like probably not even 3 seconds. And then I turned around and walked back.
Did you have any interaction with anyone other than maybe your boyfriend at the time?
No.
When you came back down towards Tyler Rich's house, who were you with at that point?
I went back inside, so I was with everyone who was in the basement.
Did you walk back alone, or
I walked back.
And so, to your knowledge, did Matt Lockovich stay up there?
Yeah, because he wasn't in the basement when I was. But I wasn't even for sure that he was up there. I assumed he was up there because a bunch of Ricky and Tyler are his friends, so I assumed he was up there. So that's why I started walking up there. I didn't get that far, and then I turned around. He wasn't in the basement, so I was assuming.
Why did you walk up there in the first place?
I thought he was up there.
You thought Matt? Were you concerned for him? Why were you going up there to?
I was just curious, concerned why he was going up there, so I walked up there.
When you came back down to go back towards Tyler Rich's house, did you encounter anyone at that point before you got back to
Not that I remember, no.
When you approached the house, was there anyone standing on the front lawn at that point?
I think there were a couple people in the front yard. I couldn't tell you who. I don't remember.
At some point, you got back into the basement. When you got back into the basement, who did you recognize in the basement at this point?
Lily was there. My friend Izzy was down there. A couple other girls that I was talking to.
When you say Lily, Lily's last name?
Lombardi.
And Izzy?
Silvis.
Anyone else that you saw down there?
There were people older than me Michaela Holton was down there.
Do you recall that Jimmy was there?
Jimmy was down there, yeah.
Okay. And at some point, did you have a conversation with Jimmy?
I did.
Okay. And tell me the gist of the conversation without telling us what he said. What did you tell him, if anything?
We were just talking at that point about his girlfriend and how happy he was with her. He just was saying how he loves her and he's been so happy recently with her. That's really part of the conversation.
At some point after seeing what you saw when you first went out to see the car, as well as observing what you did when you went down Laurel Glen, did you think something bad was going to happen?
Yeah.
And what did you think was going to happen?
At this point, they've driven by multiple times and everyone was talking about it. So I figured that there was going to be an altercation maybe of some sort. I don't know, like not physically, but maybe verbally or something along the lines.
At some point, did Matt Lokovich come back to the basement area?
Yeah.
Did you at any point tell Matt Lokovich as well as Jimmy McGrath anything at that point?
Yeah, so then I started talking to both of them and I was telling them that if an altercation were to happen, to just stay out of it, don't get involved. It's not your problem. And that's what Jimmy did.
And why did you find the need to tell them that?
I just know it was mainly towards Matt. I know Jimmy wouldn't get involved. He wasn't that type of person. Matt I know if his friends were in an altercation, he wouldn't just stand there and let it happen.
Now, at some point, did you go back outside and see this Honda Pilot again?
Yeah.
And when and how did you come to see this Honda Pilot again?
So then everyone started going outside and I went outside with them. And that's when I walked out and Lito and Tyler were on the yard fighting with everyone.
I'm going to be showing you what's been marked as, well, plate numbers are during, when you walk out and you walk back out the doors.
Yeah.
You walk back out the doors of the yard too.
The front yard.
I'm going to be showing you what's been marked as State 3. Is this a good representation of where you were standing when you came back outside?
Yeah, actually, basically where I was standing, yeah.
Okay. And if you can explain to members of the jury where in State 3 you were standing, and I can use the pen again if you just want to direct me to where, because I know if you point on your screen the jurors can't see it. Can you see my pen? Can you direct me to go to the left or the right?
I go
back.
Yeah, back a little bit and honestly right there.
Let the record reflect, Your Honor, that the witness is identifying with the state's assistance that she was standing to the bottom, pretty much middle section of State 3.
The record will reflect. Thank you.
Now, Taylor, you said that when you came outside, you were standing in that area as indicated in State 3. You indicated you saw the pilot? Okay. And what did you see in conjunction with seeing the pilot?
It was just parked on the street, near the mailbox a little bit. Kind of like the mailbox would be where the car's in the center, if that makes sense. The mailbox would separate half the car was in the front of it and half the car was back.
So showing you State 5, I know this is a daytime picture, but can you indicate on State 5 where you observed the Honda Pilot pull up?
It came from, it would be more in front of this picture a little bit, probably right by the basketball hoop.
Okay, so this area here?
Yeah.
So is that a little bit better?
Yeah, I would say right there.
Okay. So Your Honor, let this record reflect that the witness identifying pilot pulled up to the left-hand bottom side of State 5 towards a little bit off from the curve area of State 5.
Noted. Thank you.
So Taylor, when you saw the pilot as indicated in State 5 where it parked, what, if anything, did you see after it parked?
That's when Lito and Tyler DaSilva had gotten out of the car.
And where did you observe them going when they got out of the vehicle?
Onto the grass.
And at that point, did you have anything blocking your view? How was the lighting?
There was flashlights on. Again, the garage had the light on it. So I could see clearly. There wasn't a lot of people standing in front of me, so I did have a clear view, yes.
You had indicated you were familiar with both Tyler DaSilva and Lito, the defendant. Do you recall what they were wearing that night?
They were both kind of wearing the same color. I'd say it was a lighter blue, probably the color of this, maybe a little lighter.
Were you able to clearly identify at that point with the lighting and where you were standing who was who?
Yeah.
Do you recall, if you can, where was the defendant standing and where was Tyler DaSilva standing? And I don't know if State 3, if you'd rather me use State 3 or if that you think about.
I would say Tyler DaSilva was up closer to the, on the grass near the bush, and Lito was behind him farther towards the road more.
Okay. So you're indicating here that, say that again, please.
That Tyler DaSilva was up more, towards the bush a little bit.
Okay.
On the grass, maybe up a little more. Yeah, right over there. And then Lito was behind him.
Behind, further over here.
It's like a little dark. I can't really see if that's still.
Why don't you give her the exhibit and let her take a look at it over here? Perhaps she could point it out.
Would this exhibit help better? States 5.
Yeah. So so they ran up onto the grass, and then Tyler DaSilva was closer to the red bush. Right. Yeah. Like closer to that bush, and then Lito would be behind him, so closer to the road.
Okay, so more towards the
Yeah.
Okay. And when you came out and you observed Tyler DaSilva and the defendant, what did you observe them doing?
When I came out to the point, they were fighting at that point. They were in the fight at that point.
When you say they, who's they?
Tyler and Lito were fighting the Shelton kids.
When you see the Shelton kids, can you recall from where you were standing, or were you able to observe from where you were standing, who from the Shelton kids, who from the house came out to fight?
A bunch of us were out there, kind of just standing there, like most of us were just watching. I believe Alex Bernstein was near Tyler DaSilva, and I'm not sure who Lito was fighting with at that point.
Is it your testimony that when you came out, the fight was already in progress? Okay. So is it fair to say that you did not have any kind of firsthand knowledge about who threw the first punch or how the fight started? Explain as much as you can when the fight started, or when you came out and saw the fight, what was going on? What was the environment?
It was just chaotic and a lot going on at that point. People just standing there, some of them fighting. Everyone was kind of just everywhere at that point.
Were all the Shelton kids fighting, or were some observing?
No, the majority were watching. I think only a couple kids were fighting at that time.
And who were you standing around when this fight was occurring?
I was next to Michaela Holton.
Michaela Holton? And who's Michaela Holton to you?
She's one of my friends. She's friends with my sister. They cheered together.
Was she dating anyone who was involved in this fight, or who was there?
Yeah, Andrew.
Andrew.
I don't know how to say his last name.
Was he Mr. Litos?
Yeah.
Was he present there as well? And do you recall seeing Tyler DaSilva during this fight?
Yeah.
Do you recall seeing the defendant during this fight? And at any time during the fight, did you hear anything about a knife?
Yes.
And if you could please explain to the members of the jury what you heard at that point.
I heard Charlie Connery screaming, "He has a knife, he has a knife."
And are you familiar with Charlie Connery? Are you familiar with his voice?
Yeah.
Were you able to tell it was him? And when you heard he has a knife, what was going through your head?
I was just like, oh my God, what's going on? Are you talking about he has a knife?
Did you know who he was referring to when you heard he has a knife?
Well, that's at the point where I saw, a couple seconds after that is when the defendant was near.
It's okay. Take a second.
The defendant was near Jimmy, and he was lunging towards him, and I just saw him go up to Jimmy, and Jimmy stays there for like 2 seconds. And I looked over and saw Tommy there was a flashlight pointing down on Tommy's leg, and he had blood all over his leg. And I looked back at Jimmy, and at that point his shorts just all bloody, and I just stood there. I didn't know what to do.
Okay, Taylor. I know this is really difficult. I'm going to have to take you through it a little bit just so you can give some more detail about what you saw, okay? So you indicated that you heard Charlie Connery indicate he's got a knife. And at some point, you indicated you had realized that some of the Shelton kids had gotten stabbed. Is that right? And who did you become aware that got stabbed?
At first, it was Tommy that I was aware of.
Okay. Who else did you become aware that got stabbed?
At that point, I didn't know anyone else. I didn't see anyone else.
At some point during the night, did you learn that other people had gotten stabbed?
Yes.
Who were those individuals?
Ryan Hines, Faison Teal, Jimmy McGrath, and Tommy Connery.
And did you personally see Tommy, Ryan, or Faison get stabbed?
No.
Taylor, who did you see first with injuries?
Tommy.
And then whose injuries did you see after that?
And I looked at Jimmy.
And you realized what happened to him? And then who did you see after that?
Then it was Faison.
And then at some point, did you realize Ryan had been stabbed?
I don't think I saw Ryan at the rest before that. I think I saw him once the ambulance got there. Then I saw Ryan.
And do you recall observing who those individuals, other than Jimmy, were fighting with? Meaning, who was Tommy fighting with? Who was Faison fighting with? Who was Ryan fighting with? Were they fighting with the defendant, or were they fighting with Tyler?
The defendant.
Defendant. And you personally observed that?
I just remember them being closer to the defendant.
And did you see Jimmy fighting with Tyler DaSilva at all?
Not at all.
And did you see Jimmy fighting with the defendant at any point?
Not at all.
Was Jimmy involved in the fight at all? What was he doing during the fight?
Standing there.
Standing there? Would you characterize as him just observing?
Yeah.
And at some point, did you see where the defendant went? So after you saw the fight break out, did you see the defendant go anywhere at that point?
So he went to the car. I remember him going to the car and coming back.
When you observed him going to the car, explain what you saw.
He got like shoved into the road and goes up to the Honda Pilot, comes back onto the grass, and that's.
To show you state 62. Does this look familiar to you? Is this what you recollect seeing the night that he went back to the vehicle?
Yeah.
And how long would you say he was back at that vehicle for?
Long. couple seconds.
And after you saw the defendant at the vehicle, you could explain what you saw him do next. If you can take it as slow as possible and describe as much as you saw, very helpful.
So at that point is when he comes back onto the grass, and I don't know if he like slipped or turned. He spins to his, I want to say it was his left, and then he takes his arm and goes up to Jimmy.
Taylor, I'm going to have you stand up. Your Honor, if I just may have the witness demonstrate what she observed. Taylor, if I'm Jimmy, where were you in relation to where you said a little farther back, but diagonal? So if I move back a little bit? Yeah. Okay. And so where was the defendant positioned to where you saw right there? Okay. And if you can demonstrate, and Your Honor, let the record reflect that the witness is pointing to her left-hand side towards members of the jury as to where the defendant was standing. She indicated that Jimmy McGrath was standing to the defendant's left-hand side directly in front of her. So if you can please just show members of the jury what you observed the defendant do with his arms and the motion he used in doing what he did to James McGrath.
So right on turn, just kind of goes like upward towards Jimmy.
The record reflects her turning her right hand and making an upward motion, indicating that the defendant making an upward motion into Jimmy McGrath. So Taylor, when you saw the defendant come back from the vehicle and come back around, and as you said, turned around and made that motion up into Jimmy, did you see what he was holding in his hand?
I couldn't see exactly.
Can you describe or show us what he was doing with his hand? Was it open? Was it closed?
It was in a fist. You could tell, obviously, that there was something in his hand.
And when he came back around to use whatever was in his fist to go into Jimmy, what was Jimmy doing at that point?
He kind of just like he was backing up, and like his hands kind of were up, and he just like takes like a step back.
When the defendant came back from the vehicle and came back around, did you observe him swinging the knife at random people, or did you observe him coming and making a beeline for Jimmy?
He came right for Jimmy.
Did he have purpose in going towards him?
It looked like it.
Did he say anything when he was lunging towards Jimmy?
Not that I remember.
And at that point, did you realize what he had just done? And if you can indicate to members of the jury what you observed Jimmy do next after you saw the defendant stab him.
He kind of just stood there for a second, just like falls down onto the ground. And you can see he had those white shorts on. You could just see them all covered in blood.
And after you saw that, what, if anything, did you do?
I didn't know what to do. I literally froze. And then everyone kind of was looking around, seeing that everyone was at this point that then Faison had actually come up to me. And I saw his arm, and it was just like a chunk of Faison, like his like fat tissue was coming out of his arm. And he was like, can you tie this? And I'm not good with blood. So I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I really can't help you. And someone else ended up helping him. And then that's when I ended up calling my mom. And then I called my dad, and he ended up coming.
At any point before you saw Jimmy get stabbed, or as you saw Jimmy get stabbed, did you hear him say anything?
No, not that I remember Jimmy saying anything.
Was anyone around you? Were you tending to anyone other than, like, you indicated Faison when this was happening?
No, just Faison.
Where was Michaela Holton at this point?
I think she walked back, like backwards. At that point, I think I was standing by myself. I was so focused on what just happened, I really don't remember.
After you noticed what happened to Jimmy, after you saw Faison's injuries, when did you realize Tommy had also gotten stabbed?
There was a flashlight pointing down on Tommy's leg. So I guess it was, after that I saw Tommy, and everyone was kind of trying to tie like a tourniquet, I guess you could say, onto his leg with like shirts that the guys had on. Yeah.
After Jimmy was stabbed, after all the boys were stabbed, did you see where the defendant and Tyler DaSilva went?
Back into the Honda Pilot.
You saw that with your own eyes?
I don't remember who exactly running back into the Honda Pilot though.
And what did you see the Honda Pilot do?
It drove down towards Adams Drive.
And at some point you indicated you had called your parents. At another point, at some point too, police arrive and EMS arrive. Were you outside when this was happening? And did your parents come to the scene as well?
My dad ended up coming with my sister.
And did you go home right away when your dad showed up?
I think we stood there for a good amount of time, and then I ended up going home.
Did you talk to the police that night? At what point did you talk to the police, do you recall?
I want to believe it was that, I want to say the day, maybe not the day after, maybe that Monday. Yeah, maybe like 2 days after.
Was it once or more than once?
It was more than once.
And at any time the night of May 14th of 2022, did you see Jimmy McGrath fighting with
No.
Any time the night of that party, did you see Jimmy McGrath fighting with anyone? At any time that night, did you see Jimmy McGrath with a weapon? Did Did you see any of the Shelton kids with weapons?
No.
Taylor, you personally observed and witnessed a friend of yours get stabbed, fatally stabbed, and witnessed the stabbing of other friends of yours. How has this affected you mentally?
I've gone to therapy for it. There would be nights, even at school, at college, that I would have like nightmares of this, and I'd call my mom hyperventilating because it's just like and even after the event happened, it just replays in my head, and it's just hard to know that he wasn't even doing anything and this happened. I've gotten really bad. I've always had anxiety, but I think it's increased definitely after this. I don't know, it's just a lot. Obviously, like I said, going to therapy for it. I didn't know what else to do. Traumatic in the moment, Your Honor.
Good morning, Ms. Capela. You and I have never met before, is that true?
Sure.
And I'll just remind you, if you can, keep your voice up.
Yes.
You have to compete with the loud fan, and then the court reporter needs you to say either yes or no. She can't get a head nod or that, okay? So you talked to us a little bit on Friday, and I want to ask you a few questions about that. Okay? I'm going to use some of the same exhibits that you've seen so far, and I may use some exhibits that you haven't seen so far.
You may think.
I am going to show you what's been marked as one. Just reorient us quick. Do you see the red mark on the exhibit behind you? And whose house is that?
Just
Okay. And you were at Tyler Rich's house on May, correct? And you were there you drove yourself, you told us, but you met up there with your boyfriend, Matthew Lockovich, at the time.
yes.
And you told us that you'd been to this house previously, right? In fact, you'd been to this house many times previously, right?
A handful of times, yeah.
A handful of times. Okay. Well, you told us that you had grown up essentially when you were younger and were friends with this group of kids that were at Tyler Rich's house, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And you told us that there were about 20 to 25 people that were there when you got there?
Yeah.
And you described what a number of witnesses have described, which is going into the house through the side and what are Bilco doors, right? And just in case there's anybody like me who didn't know what those were before, will you tell us what a Bilco door is?
They're just doors like slanted, and you open them, and there's stairs that go downstairs.
Gotcha. So they're not umbilical doors, right?
No.
They're not Belco doors, right?
No.
They're Bilco doors because that's the name of the manufacturer that makes them?
I'm not sure about the manufacturer, but
Okay, but you know them as Bilco doors.
yeah.
And they led down into the basement, right? And when you got down there into the basement, you told us there was maybe 20 to 25 people there, right?
Yes.
Among those folks that were there were your boyfriend, Matthew Lockovich, right?
Yes.
Tyler Rich, the owner of the house,
Yes.
right? Enrico or Ricky Fiola, right?
Yes.
How did you know Ricky Fiola?
We're in the same friend group.
Okay. Did he also attend the same high school as you?
Yes.
Was he in your grade?
Yes.
And you were a junior at this time, correct?
Rising senior, yes.
Okay. So you graduated the following year.
Yes.
And you also told us that you saw Faison Teal there.
Yes.
And there was a Lily, but I didn't catch her last name. What was
Lily
it?
Lombardi.
Lombardi. And how did you know Lily?
I grew up with her.
And you told us that you also saw Jimmy McGrath there, right?
Yes.
And that he was a friend of yours from when you were younger, right?
Yes.
That your parents were friends and you were also friends with his sister Rosie.
Yes.
And so you'd known them from being a young child.
Yes.
You didn't go to school with him anymore because he was going to Fairfield Prep. And you identified a picture of him over at Nikki DeJesus's house, right?
Yes.
He was playing pool.
Yeah.
And he was wearing the same outfit that he was wearing later on that evening at this party at Tyler Rich's,
Yeah.
right? And you told us that there was drinking going on at Tyler Rich's house, correct?
Correct.
And that you had maybe one beer or seltzer, right? And you said that was nothing out of the ordinary, but there were maybe more people there than usual, right?
Correct.
And you noted that they were mostly older kids.
Yeah. I'm a year below them. And Tyler Rich is a year above me. So it was majority his friends and maybe a year above him as well.
So there were some seniors there and there were some kids that had already graduated, correct? And that was the majority of the kids that were there. And these were all kids, for the most part, that were on the Shelton High football team.
Yeah, I'd say.
Did you also play any sports?
I did softball for 2 years in high school.
Okay.
Awesome.
But this wasn't a
No,
soccer.
no.
And then you said a little bit later you saw two other people, Griffin Marsens and Ryan Hines, right? And how did you know Griffin Marsens?
We went to high school together. I would hang out with him on occasion.
And he was a younger kid, right? And then you also told us that you saw Ryan Hines, right? And he was also a younger kid, right?
Yeah.
And you told us that they had been brought there by Charlie Connery, right?
Yeah.
And that he had left the party, in fact, to go and pick them up, right?
Yeah, that I'm aware of.
After people downstairs were talking about a fight that had occurred previously, right? And as far as you knew, that's why they were coming over there, right?
Yeah.
And then you told us that at some point you had gone outside because it was hot downstairs in the basement.
Correct.
And then you were already outside, you said, with Matthew Lockovich and some others. Do you remember who those others were?
I don't. It was just group on.
And this group, were there any other girls in this group?
I'm not sure who exactly. I just know there were people outside.
Do you remember how many people were outside?
Not many. I'd say like maybe 6 people outside.
I'm going to show you another. I'm going to show you what's been marked as States 52. Now, on States 52, can you point out to us where you were using that pointer that's beside you when you were outside and it was hot and you were with these 6 other folks?
So I was standing in front of the door, the cellar doors at that point.
Okay, so we can't see it
Right.
on this, correct? And outside that evening, it was dark, you told us?
Yeah.
There were some lights on the house?
Yeah.
There were also some folks with, well, not at this point, withdrawn. It was rainy that night.
I don't remember the weather.
Do you recall any misting, any sort of drizzle or anything like that?
Don't.
And when you were out there, you told us that you saw a car drive by, right?
Yeah.
What was that car doing when you saw it drive by?
It was just driving down the street at that point.
Was it driving past you on Laurel Glen Drive, or did it drive past you up Adams?
Down Laurel Glen Drive.
Okay. So it came by Laurel Glen Drive, didn't do anything. Did you watch it go further down the street?
I just watched it drive by.
Okay. Did any of the people that you were with seem to notice that car come?
I think so.
And what did they do when they noticed that car go by?
I think people just went to the front.
They moved up to the front of the lawn?
There were people in the front, and then some of the people that were near me were walking towards the front.
Okay. So the group moved closer to the road at that point, following this car?
Not following the car, moving to the front yard.
And you said that Ricky Fiola and Tyler Rich went up to the front of the yard, right?
Yeah.
And do you remember anybody else who went up to the front of the yard? Did Matthew Lokovich go up to the front of the yard?
Possibly. I'm not sure.
And you said that, and so at some point, did the car come back?
Yeah.
And when it came back, which way was it facing?
It was facing towards, I think it's
Would it help you if I
Farmhouse, I believe. Is that the
Towards
street at the end?
Would it help if I showed you the things? All right. So let's orient ourselves. You've described the car coming by and going down Laurel Glen towards Farmhouse,
Yes.
right? And now you say the car came back at some point. When it came back, which way was it facing? So it came back from Farmhouse and then it was facing towards Farmhouse?
I don't know if they turned around or went around. Like, if you go down Farmhouse and go down the other street back on Adams, it'll make like a square. So I don't know if they turned around or what they did.
Did you see them coming back from Farmhouse up Laurel Glen?
No, they came from Adams and went down Laurel, or I'm assuming that's what they did. Because when they came to Laurel Glen, they went down the street towards Farmhouse again.
Okay. And you say that they came to a stop in front of the house.
Yeah.
Back up there. And at this point, you said that the Honda Pilot stopped, right?
Yeah.
And when it pulled up, where was it located?
I'd say like right here.
Right there by the curb?
Yeah.
Not across the street? Not by the mailbox? And were you still standing back by the Bilco doors?
I had walked up a little more at that point.
Where were you standing at that point?
Here.
Okay. Your Honor, may the record reflect that the witness has pointed to the shaded area by the tree line and the rear driver's side of the black truck that's parked in the driveway on the exhibit.
Order the record to reflect that information. Thank you.
And at that point, were other people coming out of the house?
Coming out of the house, I'm not sure. It was the people that were outside that I saw previously.
Do you remember whether any other people came out of the house?
I don't remember.
Did anybody pass you?
Yeah, I think a couple people maybe.
Okay. And did those people appear to be coming from behind you?
Yeah.
And behind you at this point is where the house was, correct? And a few people, you say. How many people do you recall passing?
3 maybe.
Just 3? And could you see Matthew Lokovich at that point?
He was standing with me, yeah.
He was standing beside you. What was he doing?
The same thing I was doing, standing there.
And was he saying anything?
I think we were just watching.
Okay. And you're both standing in that same area? And do you recall anybody else that was standing with you and Matthew Lokovich?
No, I don't.
Do you recall seeing Jimmy McGrath at that point?
I think he was inside at that point.
So you don't recall seeing him? Do you recall seeing Tyler Rich?
Yeah.
Where was he?
In the front yard.
In the front yard by the curb?
Yeah.
Had he approached the car?
No, so he was probably like where that green tree is.
Okay.
This tree.
Okay. Your Honor, may the record reflect that the witness has pointed to the sole green tree directly in the middle of the exhibit. And who else was with Tyler Rich at that point?
I think it was just Ricky. I didn't see anyone else.
Just Tyler and Ricky?
Yeah, I
Just two
remember.
of them in that spot?
That I remember, yeah.
Was anybody else there?
I think there was other people around, but I don't remember who exactly.
And how many other people do you think were there?
But I really don't remember.
Okay. Did you see Face on Teal?
No, not at that point.
Did you see Tommy Connery?
No.
Did you see Mike Samperi?
No.
Did you see Sal Perry?
I don't remember. I really don't remember who was at the car.
Did you see Jacob Villalobos?
Not at that point, no.
Did you see Nikki DeJesus?
Not at that point, no.
Did you see Ty Wood?
No, not at that point.
Did you see Tanner Chernowski?
Not at that point.
And so you've got yourself and Matthew Lokovich standing. At this point, you remained in that same spot. Did you ever move from that spot?
To go back inside.
Did you ever get any closer to the vehicle, did Matthew Lockovich ever get any closer to the vehicle?
I don't think so.
Did you see Ryan Hines?
No, not at that point.
Did you see Griffin Marcinzik? And so you've said that you saw just Tyler Rich and Ricky Field approaching the vehicle.
That I remember, yes.
And what did they do as they approached the vehicle?
I don't remember them approaching the vehicle. I remember being them in the front yard walking towards the car, and a bunch of other people were in the front. Or I wouldn't say a bunch, but a couple people were in the front. And when they were getting closer to the car is when I went inside.
Did you ever at any point hear them getting loud?
No.
Did you hear any banging?
No, I heard things being thrown from both sides, but then I went inside.
You say you heard things being thrown from both sides.
Yeah.
How could you hear something being thrown from both sides?
You can hear, I'd say, a can like hitting the ground, like the driveway. You could hear it hitting. You can hear something hit the car.
But you didn't hear any yelling or aggressive before that?
I don't remember exactly if they were yelling or not. I just remember things being thrown.
So you heard things getting thrown. Did you see anybody surround the car?
No.
Was Matthew Lockovich beside you the whole time?
No.
Where did he go?
I think he stayed outside. I went inside.
And so by the time you went inside, you hadn't heard any yelling.
No, not that I remember.
You hadn't heard any screaming.
No.
You hadn't heard any curses.
No.
You hadn't heard any threats being made. You didn't see anybody touch the car. You didn't see anybody other than Tyler Rich and Ricky Field up near the car, but they weren't touching the car.
No.
You didn't see them throw anything at the car. You didn't see anybody get out of the car.
No.
And so then you turned around and went back inside. And who was inside when you went back inside?
Then I was with my friend Lily, Michaela Holton. Jimmy was down there. Izzy Silvis. I was just standing with those girls.
Before you went back inside, I think you told us on Friday that that you could see flashlights.
Yeah.
And when you say flashlights, do you mean on a phone? So you could see people with their phones already out and their flashlights on?
You could see lights, so I was assuming it was coming from their phones, yes.
And how many did you see?
A couple.
And you said that at some point you became aware that people were going back outside.
Yeah.
How did you become aware that people were going back outside?
I saw people going outside, and then people were talking about it.
Let's break that down a little bit. When you went back inside, did you go sit down somewhere?
I think I just stood right by the door, the stairs to go outside.
At the bottom of the stairs? Do you remember anybody that was down there at the bottom of the stairs with you?
At that point, Jimmy was down there.
Jimmy was down there at the bottom of the stairs with you? Anybody else?
I was just talking to him, so I didn't really check around who was around me.
And you said you became aware because people started going back outside. They were passing you to get up the stairs. How many people went past you?
I'm not sure.
Were you the last one to go back outside?
No, I think there were people behind me.
Did everybody empty out of the basement?
No.
How do you know that?
Because when I was leaving, there were still people down there.
How do you know that they didn't come out after you?
I mean, they could have.
So you're not sure?
I'm not sure.
Did Jimmy go back outside with you?
I don't know.
So you're talking to him down at the bottom of the stairs. You don't know whether or not he went back outside with you. And you said when you went back outside that people started walking up the street towards Farmhouse Lane?
Right.
And did you see a vehicle down there?
Yeah.
What vehicle did you understand that to be?
It was the Honda Pilot.
And the Honda Pilot, that's the car that had pulled up before. Had you seen who was inside the vehicle at that point?
No.
And you said the people started walking up the street, right?
Yeah.
Did you see anybody running up the street?
No.
Did you hear anybody yelling as they were going down the street? Did you see anybody throwing anything as they were going down the street? How many people did you see going down the street?
They were already down towards Farmhouse by the time I started walking outside. So there were people just standing up there, and then there were people sitting on the curb. There were a couple sitting on the curb.
Okay. And you said that of these people that were walking up the street, one of them that you identified for us was Tyler Rich, right? Matthew Lockovich.
Yeah.
Ricky Fiola. Did you see Ryan Hines go up the street? Did you see Griffin Marcinzik go up the street? Did you see Jimmy McGrath go up the street? Did you see Jimmy McGrath when you were outside?
No.
Did you see Michael Samperi go up the street?
No.
Jacob Villalobos?
No.
The only three people that you can identify who walked up the street were Tyler Rich, Matthew Lockovich, and Ricky Fiola.
Yes.
Did you see Faison Teal at that point?
No.
And you told us you didn't hear any screaming?
No.
Didn't hear any yelling? Didn't see or hear anything being thrown?
No.
And you said that you yourself walked up the street at that point, right? About a quarter of the way down towards Laurel Glen Drive, right?
Towards Farmhouse.
Towards Farmhouse,
Yeah.
on Laurel Glen
Yep.
Drive.
Yep.
And was anybody else walking with you?
No.
And you said at that point you could see a car parked about 3/4 of the way down Laurel Glen Drive towards Farmhouse.
Yes.
And you said you saw some people standing there, correct?
Yeah.
Could you identify who those people were?
No, I was far back.
You didn't see anyone running after the vehicle.
No.
And you watched exhibit number 44. That was the ring video from across the
Yes.
street. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
But you told us that you didn't see anything that had shown.
No.
You told us you spent about 30 seconds down the street, correct?
I'd say a couple seconds, definitely not 30 seconds.
Okay, a couple seconds. You spent a couple seconds down the street. Were you with anybody during that time?
No.
Just by yourself?
Yeah.
And then you turned around and went back to Tyler Rich's house.
Yes.
You said when you went back inside, everyone was in the basement.
Right.
But not Ricky Fiola,
So not everybody.
not Tyler Rich, not Matthew Lockovich. Was Jimmy McGrath in the basement?
Yeah.
Was Ryan Hines in the basement?
I don't know.
Griffin Marcinsic?
I'm not sure.
Faison Teal?
I believe Faison was in there.
Where did you see Faison?
I think he was on the couch, if I'm not mistaken.
Who was sitting with him on the couch?
I don't remember.
Did you see Tommy Connery?
I don't remember.
Charlie Connery?
I don't remember.
Jacob Villalobos?
I'm not sure.
Alex Bernson?
No, I didn't see him.
Tyler Chernowski?
Tanner Chernowski?
Tanner Chernowski.
I'm not sure.
You said Ricky Fiola and Tyler Rich, those are Matthew Lockovich's friends, right?
Correct.
And you did tell us that also in the basement was Lily Lombardi,
Yep.
Izzy Silvas,
Yep.
and Michaela Holton, right?
Yes.
So you do remember that they were there as well.
Yeah.
And you're certain that Jimmy McGrath was down there.
Yeah.
And you told us you thought something bad was going to happen, right?
Yeah.
That everyone was going on about it, right?
I wouldn't say going on about it, but there was discussion about it.
Well, how would you describe that discussion about it?
Just talking, just like.
Calmly, like you and I are? Just talking about what had happened out front?
Correct.
And how were they describing what had happened out front?
I don't remember exactly what they were saying.
Did you hear any talk about wanting to fight the kids?
No.
Did you hear any talk about wanting payback?
No.
But you thought something bad was going to happen?
Yeah.
And you told us that you talked to Matthew Lockovich and Jimmy McGrath to stay out of it.
Correct.
So at some point, Matthew Lockovich came back inside. So now he's down in the basement too. When did he come back to the basement?
I'm not sure.
You told us you knew that Jimmy McGrath wouldn't get involved.
Yeah.
Matthew Lockovich, if his friends were involved, he wouldn't just stand by.
Correct.
Were Matthew and Jimmy talking calmly about it as well?
They weren't even talking about it.
They weren't even talking about it. And then you told us that you walked back out the Bilko doors. How many other people went out with you when you went out the Bilko doors?
I'm not sure how many people.
And did everybody go out in a group?
I feel like everyone went out in parts. There wasn't just a whole group walking up there.
Did they all casually walk out?
Yeah.
Nobody was running to get outside?
Not that I saw.
And then you described going out back into the front yard after you'd walked through the Bilko doors. When you came back out, now this is the second time you've gone out into the front yard, right?
No, this would be the third time I went outside.
Okay. This is the third time that you went out into the front yard. Where did you stand this time? Could you show us on the exhibit?
Right over here.
Your Honor, may the record reflect that the witness has pointed to the front of the black truck that is parked in the driveway in between the black truck and the red bush that is parallel to it.
Order allow the record to so reflect.
You're standing there. Who do you see in front of you?
Directly in front of me
Yes.
would be Jimmy and Charlie at that point.
Can you point out where they are on the exhibit?
Right over here.
So they're not directly in front of you. Sorry? Diagonal from you. How many feet away were they standing?
Maybe from me to, I'd say if the TV was a little farther back and I was standing a little farther back.
Okay, so you say from the wall of behind you
So
to the TV. And so you could see Jimmy. And who was standing beside Jimmy?
Charlie Connery.
They were standing side by side?
Yep.
Who else could you identify as being there?
Matlock.
Where was Matlock standing?
He was moving around, so towards the end he was near Jimmy.
And when we say Matlock, we're not talking
Matthew
about
Lockovich.
not the attorney played by Andy Griffith.
No, I'm not aware of who
I
that
don't know
is.
who that is.
I have no idea.
All right, so you say Matt was moving around.
Yeah.
When you first got outside, where was Matt?
I'm not sure.
You couldn't see him. Was there anybody that was up there by the red bush and the tree line where the shade is, where you had been earlier?
Near the truck, is that what you're talking about?
Right, when you described having been out there earlier.
I'm not sure if anyone was standing up there.
You didn't see anybody up there?
Not that I know.
Everybody was down closer to the front part of the grass at that point?
Yeah, some people were in the driveway. Maybe some people could have been back there, but I wasn't turning around to look.
Did you see Ryan Hines?
No.
Did you see Faison Teal?
At the end, I saw Faison.
Did you see him when you first came out? And you described that Jimmy McGrath and Charlie Connery were closer to the curb.
Yeah.
Did you see the vehicle, the Honda Pilot that you had described before? Where was that?
Parked. I would say right here.
Now, may the record reflect, Your Honor, that the witnesses pointed on the exhibit to an area beside the mailbox.
Well, go ahead and reflect that on the record. Thank you.
And there were other cars parked in the road too, right?
Yeah.
Both sides of the road?
Yes.
Do you recall whether or not it was raining or misty at this point?
I don't.
Did you see people with their phones out and the lights on?
Yes.
And were there just Jimmy and Charlie standing in the front of the yard?
I think there was more people, but I don't remember who exactly.
Did you see Tyler Rich?
Yes.
Where was he?
I think he was closer to the, like, near the red bush, but towards the center a little bit.
Okay.
So, like,
Close to Jimmy and Charlie?
No.
And you told us that you saw Tyler DaSilva get out of the vehicle?
I didn't see them get out of the vehicle.
You didn't see them get out of the vehicle.
When I had walked up, the fight was already going on.
Okay. You told us on Friday, though, that you'd seen them run up onto the grass.
I would assume that they ran up onto the grass.
Oh.
I did not see.
You didn't see them run up onto the grass. So when you came out, the fight was already going on?
Yeah.
And who was fighting at that point?
Tyler DaSilva and Lito and Tyler Rich, or maybe Alex Bernstein, I'm not sure.
You've seen video of this fight, correct?
Yeah.
And how many times have you seen that video?
A couple times.
Just a couple?
Yeah.
When was the last time you saw that video?
The last time I spoke with the state attorney, so when was that? I'm not sure exactly what date that was. It'd be a couple weeks ago.
In anticipation of coming in here to testify? So when you say you would assume that they ran up onto the grass, that's not something that you actually saw. You don't know if these two people walked up onto the grass or not.
Correct.
But you did tell us that at one point Tyler DaSilva was by the red bush.
Correct.
And that Mr. Valle was behind him and closer to the road.
Correct.
You said a bunch of you were just standing there watching, right?
Correct.
Who was just standing there watching?
Me, Michaela Holton, that I'm aware of. Everyone was kind of just standing around, so I'm not sure.
You said by the end that Matt Lockovich was standing by Jimmy.
Correct.
Do you recall was he wearing a shirt?
No, he wasn't.
Do you recall when he took that shirt off?
I don't know.
Had he had it on earlier when you were standing outside with him?
Yeah, I believe so.
And you told us on Friday that Alex Bernstein at this point was near Tyler DaSilva, but you weren't quite sure about that?
Correct.
And you described it as being a chaotic scene, right?
Correct.
Everyone was everywhere, you said.
Correct.
But there were only a couple of kids fighting, and most of them were watching, was your recollection?
Correct.
And now you tell us that you were watching, correct? Michaela Holton was standing beside you. She was watching.
Correct.
Did either of you have your phones out?
No.
And who else was watching it, though?
I know Jimmy was watching. I'm really not sure who else.
When you say you know Jimmy was watching,
Yeah.
how do you know Jimmy was watching?
Because I was staring at him.
You were staring at him. And he was standing in one place the whole time?
About the same area, at least.
The same area. So he wasn't standing in one place the whole time.
He wasn't just standing still. I'd say, like, moving, but he didn't leave that vicinity over there.
When you say that vicinity, can you show us where he never left?
I'd say, like, right over here, in that area.
You never saw him throw any punches?
No.
You never saw him throw any kicks?
No.
You never saw him even get close enough to do so?
No.
Was there anyone blocking your view of Jimmy?
No.
When you're standing there watching, could you identify where Tyler DaSilva was?
No, not when I was looking at Jimmy, no.
At any point, did you see Tyler DaSilva involved in the fight on the lawn?
Yeah.
Where was he? Could you point out for us?
Tyler DaSilva?
Tyler DaSilva.
I'd say he was closer to the red bush.
Closer to the red bush? And how many people was he fighting with?
It looks like one that I knew of for sure.
Looked like one. Do you remember who that was?
No, not really. I couldn't really see.
And could you see Mr. Valle at any point?
He was behind Tyler, so I couldn't see him until later.
Okay, so you couldn't see where Mr. Valle was.
He knew he was behind Tyler DaSilva, so he was closer to the curb, but I couldn't see him, like, fighting.
And then you said you recall hearing someone say he has a knife. He has a knife.
Correct.
Do you know who that was that said that?
Charlie Connery?
How do you know that?
Because I know Charlie's voice.
And so that night, you recall hearing him say that he has a knife. He has.
Correct.
And you told us you thought, oh my God, what's going on?
Correct.
And then a couple seconds later, you saw Mr. Valle near Jimmy McGrath.
Correct.
And Jimmy McGrath, he was still in that same place. He hadn't moved. And was there anybody else near Mr. Valle?
At the time that he was near Jimmy,
Yes.
I think Matt and Charlie were near him.
Where were they?
I'm not sure. I know Charlie was on, I don't know what side Charlie was on, but I know Charlie was near him, and I know Matt had walked by him at that point.
Was Mr. McGrath back to you, or was he facing you?
He was like, at what point are you talking about?
When you saw him and he was near Mr. Valle.
The defendant was lunging at him?
When the first time that you saw him was, and you've described watching Mr. McGrath, was he facing you, or were you looking at his back?
He was facing me.
Mr. McGrath was facing you?
Yeah.
And did you see Will Berardi?
No, I don't recall seeing him.
Did you see Matt Lockovich? And where was he in relation to Mr. Valle?
Close to him.
How close?
I'm not sure.
Could you see his face or could you see his back?
I think it was his, actually not sure. I can't.
What did you see him doing?
He was just walking by him at that point.
just walking by him. And what was Charlie doing?
Charlie was just standing there, I think, just next to him.
And you told us that you could see Mr. Valle lunge towards Mr. McGrath.
Correct.
And that he stayed there, that's Mr. McGrath, for about 2 seconds.
What was that? Sorry?
You said you saw him stay there for about 2 seconds, Mr. McGrath,
Stay there for 2 seconds. I'm not sure what you're referring to.
after you saw the lunge.
Yeah.
And at that point, was it just Mr. Valle and Mr. McGrath face to
When I was
face?
looking, yeah.
There was nobody else near them?
No, not that.
No other people around them or behind Mr.
Like on the sides, like where everyone was standing, but not like directly next. No.
And you told us you didn't see a knife, is that right? And that you were first aware that Tommy Connery had been injured, correct? And you didn't see anyone else at that point?
No.
But you later learned of the others. Did you see Ryan Hines at all during the fight?
No.
Did you see Tyler Rich at all during the fight?
Here and there, not. I wasn't really focused on him.
Did you see Jacob Villalobos at all during the fight?
Yeah.
What was Jacob Villalobos doing during?
I only saw Jacob push Tyler into the road.
You also told us that you saw somebody push Mr. Valle into the road, into a car at one point, right?
No, he walked to the car.
He walked to the car. Do you recall speaking with officers about this in May, about a week after the events on May 23rd?
Yeah.
And you went down to the Shelton Police Department with your sister?
Yeah.
And you don't recall telling them that it was just a big brawl and Tyler Rich at one point pushed Raul Valle into the car?
They were wearing similar colors at that point, so when I looked, it looked like the defendant. And I think back to it, Tyler DaSilva had a jersey on, so that's how I could tell the difference.
So you're backing off of that earlier description. Now Tyler Rich did not push Mr. Valle into the car.
That I recall now. No, I'm not sure.
And you said that you could see him go to the vehicle.
Yeah.
You were watching him at that point?
Yeah, because Jimmy was right there. So when I was looking at Jimmy, he was behind him.
So Jimmy was still standing in the same spot the whole time?
Yeah.
And you could see Mr. Valle at the vehicle?
Yeah.
What did you see him do at the vehicle?
He just opened the door and came back.
You would agree that's the same thing that happens in the video, correct?
Correct.
Are you sure that you're telling us of what you remember that night or what you saw watching the video?
No, I'm positive I'm telling you what I saw.
And again, what you remember is that Jimmy was not involved in the fight at all, right?
I know that for a fact.
You know that for a fact. How do you know that for a fact?
Because I know he was not involved in the fight.
And then you told us you saw Mr. Valle come back onto the grass, correct? You said he slipped,
It looked like a slip. I don't know what happened.
then he turns and he spins to his left, and he takes his arm, and you see him do this, his right arm, this
Correct.
upward motion into Mr. McGrath.
Correct.
And at that point, you would agree Mr. McGrath's back was to you.
No, not his back.
Well, can you tell us what you saw, what your view
I would
was?
say he was standing up like this, so it was to the side angle.
And was there anybody else around Mr. McGrath and Mr. Valle at that point?
No, not that I recall.
They were isolated, just the two.
Yeah.
Did you see Mr. DaSilva at that point?
No.
And then you told us on Friday that you are studying right now a criminal justice program?
Yeah.
As part of the inspiration for doing that, what you were involved with on that evening?
I would say, yeah.
And that's being involved that evening. Has that motivated you to see someone held responsible for this?
Sure.
May we see State's Exhibit 60? Can we watch that? Do we have it? Sorry. Okay. I'm going to ask you to watch this video.
Yes, sir! Come on, let's go with it.
You've seen that video before, Ms. Capela?
Yes.
And I don't do this to be gratuitous. I apologize. I recognize it's not easy for you to do to watch that. But I do think we need to break it down just a little bit. Do you know who was filming that?
Not at that time, I didn't know.
Have you since come to learn that it was Tanner Chernowski?
Correct.
Do you remember seeing Tanner Chernowski that evening?
Here and there, I don't really think I was with him a lot.
Do you remember seeing him film that evening?
No.
So when he was filming this, you don't recall seeing him walking around with his phone out?
No.
And where were you standing when that scene was going on that we just watched there?
Right where I pointed out before.
By the truck, by the front of the truck?
Yeah.
You hadn't moved at that point?
No.
All right. Your Honor, at this point, I have what I would like to have marked as defendants for ID purposes. However, I understand that from the state. I understand there's no objection.
Hear from the state.
No objection.
Thank you.
I'd ask-
All right, criminal evidence, defendants, 2 phones. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Your Honor, may the record reflect that given the clerk's envelope marked it.
Clarification of the record, it's defendant's B, not 2. Thank you.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as Defense Exhibit B. This is a frame by frame, that same video that we just watched. Okay. We had some trouble going through it slower earlier, so broke it down to frame by frame. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay. All right. And so this is Defense Exhibit B. And we're starting here at 0. Now, in this video here, this frame 0 that we see, do you see a person point up here? Do you see a person right here with what appears to be a light blue jersey of some sort on?
Yeah.
And you can also see it there if it's easier for you on there. Do you see that person?
Yeah.
Do you know who that person is?
It's really blurry. Oh.
Fair enough. And do you see to the right in front of that person someone wearing black shorts and a green top?
Yeah.
Do you know who that person is?
And it's blurry. I can't tell.
And do you see just to the right of that person in the black shorts and the green top, someone wearing lighter colored shorts and a dark top?
Yeah.
With some sort of graphic on the back?
Yeah.
We're going to scoot ahead 1, 2 frames. And again, do you still see these same figures there on the screen?
Yeah.
And do you see that now beside the person that was on the right of the screen wearing lighter shorts and a dark top, that there is another person that is emerging wearing a similar outfit?
No, I'm sorry, I don't see that.
And move it forward for you a little bit. Do you see now in frame 6 that there is another person wearing light bottom and beside that other person?
Yeah.
Do you know who that is?
On mine, I can't even tell. They look like people, so no, I can't tell who that is. Like right here, on this screen, I can't even tell that it's a person.
Can you see legs?
I can see legs, but that's it.
Do you agree that that's indicative of a person?
On mine, it just looks like blurs.
Okay. And can you still see those same figures to the right of the screen on frame 8?
Yeah.
Do you see Matthew Lokovich anywhere here?
Not that I see, no.
And again, at frame 10, to the far right of the screen, do you see that there are at least now 2 people closest to the right edge of the frame wearing these lighter bottoms, dark tops that appear to have some graphic on the back?
Yeah.
You couldn't identify who those people were?
No.
And here we are in frame 13. Do you see those same 2 folks to the right of the screen?
Yeah.
Here we are at frame 19. To the right edge of the screen, can you see that those 2 figures, can you see their legs?
Yeah, a little.
As we get further along here, can you still see the legs of those 2 figures?
Yeah.
We are at frame 22 at this point. Sorry, I keep dropping it down. Do you see the first of those 2 figures here in frame 23? Can you see his legs?
Yeah.
Can you see his right leg?
Which one?
Can you see the one leg that appears to be back behind the others?
Yeah.
And here we are at frame 27. Can you see that leg being drawn back and now you can see the foot?
Yeah.
And do you see to the left side of the screen someone with a phone on?
Yeah.
And can you identify that person as being Ricky Fiola?
Not from this, I can't.
Here we are at frame 28. Do you see the foot of one of those 2 people to the right side of the screen?
Yeah.
What does that foot appear to be doing to you?
I'm not sure.
No longer in contact with the ground, is it?
Yeah.
You see the bottom of the foot?
Yeah.
See that same foot in frame 29?
Yes.
And frame 30, do you see that foot any longer?
It's really blurry. I can't.
Here we are in frame 40. Do you see those 2 figures with the light bottoms and the dark tops and the graphic on them? Do you still see them over here towards the right side of the screen?
I just see one.
You only see one. Here we are in frame 47. Now can you see the 2 figures again?
Yeah.
And is there a third person that appears to have joined them?
Yeah.
I apologize, Ms. Capela. I do not mean to be tedious. Here we are, frame 63. Do you see one of the 2 figures with the light bottoms and the dark top over to the right-hand side?
Yeah.
And do you still see on the left-hand side the same person that had the phone out with the light on before?
Yeah.
Can you identify that person as Ricky Fiola?
Again, I can't tell by this.
We're at frame 63 there. And again, here we are at frame 75. Can you once again see that there are 2 individuals over here with light bottoms and dark tops in the same area to the right of the screen?
Again, I can only see one.
Okay. Do you see this figure here with a white top and
yes.
a dark bottom to the right of the screen?
Yes.
Do you see to his left a figure with light bottoms and a dark top?
Yeah.
Do you see to that figure's left another figure with dark and light bottoms?
Yes.
And do you see that the figure we just described appears to be moving to his left?
Yeah.
The other figure appears to be facing more towards the street?
Yeah.
Did you see Brian Hines that evening?
No.
Never.
I saw him probably when he first got there, like a couple times, but I didn't really talk to him. And then I saw him after he was stabbed when the ambulance got there.
See him at all during the
Yeah.
night. Do you know what he was wearing then?
No, I don't remember.
Do you see this figure here in the middle of frame 84 wearing a white top with some sort of multicolored graphic on the back?
Yeah.
You know who that is?
I don't.
And here we are in frame 90. Can you see to the right of the figure with the black shorts and the green top what appears to be a figure down on the ground?
It's a big blur.
Is that the area where you recall seeing Tyler DaSilva?
I can't even tell where that is.
Here we are in frame 93. Now do you see a figure down on the ground, appears to have one arm over his head and another arm on the ground?
Yeah, I think.
Do you know whether or not that was where Tyler DaSilva was?
Sure, from this.
Well, you've seen this video before, right? Where we got these still frames from.
I think so.
And do you see the figure we just talked about in the middle with the white top and the multicolored design on the back looking towards, is that towards the road?
Yeah.
Frame 96. Do you see this figure down on the ground now?
Yeah.
Do you know whether or not that's Tyler DaSilva?
I can't tell from that.
Do you see to the right of the screen in frame 96 that there are the figure with the black bottoms and the white top that we saw before?
Yeah.
And do you see there's another figure in front of him, looks like maybe bent over?
Yeah.
Is that the area towards the road?
I guess, yeah.
And can you see on the very right of the frame here, in frame 106, again, what appears to be light bottoms, light shoes, and a dark top?
I'm sorry, can you point that out again?
To the right here of the screen, do you see light shoes, light bottoms, dark top?
Yes.
Do you see Jimmy McGrath anywhere in this screen?
No, not that I can point out.
You told us he didn't move the entire time,
I said he stood in that area. I wouldn't say he just stood in one spot, but
but he never engaged in any of the fight.
not that, no.
Not that you.
No.
Do you see the figure in the middle with the white top and multicolored design on the back?
Yeah.
And do you see to that figure's left another figure with light shoes, light bottom, dark top, and some apparent graphic on the back?
Yes.
Here we are in 108. Do you see somebody on the ground there wearing light bottom and a light blue top?
Yeah.
Do you know if that's a silver?
I believe so.
You don't see Mr. Valle at this point anywhere, do you? Do you recall the fight breaking up into essentially two separate groups at any point?
Yeah.
And the fight involving Mr. DaSilva was closer to that tree that you've described, correct?
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
And the other fight was involving Mr. Valle, right?
Correct.
How many people were fighting Mr. Valle?
I'm not sure.
Matthew Lockovich, one of them?
I'm not sure.
Jimmy McGrath, one of them?
No.
Do you see Jimmy McGrath anywhere in this video? This frame here, this is frame 124.
No, not that I could point out.
Do you see in frame 24, right in the middle of the screen, a figure wearing light shoes, light bottom, and dark top?
Yeah.
Is that Jimmy McGrath?
I can't point that out.
Do you see to the right of the frame, again, a figure wearing light shoes, black bottoms, and a white top?
Correct.
Is that what Charlie Connery was wearing that night?
I don't recall what everyone was wearing that night.
Do you see Matthew Lockovich anywhere?
No, I don't.
Do you see a person in frame 143 to the left of the screen?
Yeah.
And do you see that person with their phone out and the light on?
Yeah.
Can you identify that as being Ricky Fiola?
I'm not sure.
Do you recall seeing Ricky Fiola that night with his phone out filming anything?
I don't.
This frame here, frame 157, do you see an individual with their shirt off, darker skin, and a dark pair of dark bottoms?
Yeah.
Do you know who that is?
I believe that would be face on.
The right of the screen, do you see somebody wearing light bottoms and a dark short sleeve?
Yeah.
Who that is?
Not sure.
I want you to watch. We're going to start on frame 178. Do you see this figure here with black bottom and green top who's in the middle of the screen?
Yeah.
What does that person appear to do there to you?
I can't really see.
Do you see the leg, the right leg of that person?
I don't.
You don't see that?
No, I don't.
Here we are in frame 191. Would you agree that the focus of the camera has now panned to the right?
Correct.
That would be towards Laurel Glen Drive, right?
Yeah.
And do you see figures here on the screen?
Yeah.
You see one figure here to the very left side wearing lighter shoes, light bottom, and a dark top.
Yes.
You see a figure in front of him wearing light shoes, black bottom, and a white top.
Yeah.
Do you see a figure right here wearing white shoes, blue bottom, no top apparently?
Yeah.
What's that?
I can't tell by this. This is really blurry.
Okay. What was Matthew Lockovich wearing that evening?
I don't recall exactly from my...
And do you see another figure to the right of the screen wearing black pants, long pants, and a white top?
Yeah.
And we forward through and we yet. Do you see two vehicles here in the road?
Yes.
One near the curb?
Yep.
One behind the curb?
Yes.
And in frame, you see somebody going towards the vehicle that's further out in the road.
Yeah.
And you've seen this video before, correct?
Yeah.
And you see the figure that's closer to the car reach the car, right?
Yeah.
And then you see somebody come into the frame 226. Do you know who that person is?
I'm not sure.
Did you see the interior light appear to come on in the car there?
Yes.
And this is frame 247. Do you know who that person at the door is?
Lito?
You would agree the camera has now panned over to where Mr. Valle is at the car.
Yes.
Did you hear Mr. Valle say anything when he was at the car?
No.
You see Mr. Valle appear to be looking back towards his left.
Right.
And what was going on to his left at that? Do you know?
I'm not sure.
Did you see Tyler DaSilva at this point? Not in the video, but when you were standing on the lawn.
Yes, I believe so.
What was happening to Tyler DaSilva?
I think he was getting pushed onto the road.
He was getting pushed onto the road.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Zoom in on his face here. Cameraman does. And then we see the camera pan back to the left, correct?
Yeah.
And now we are in frame 284. Do you see a figure on the ground?
Yeah.
Is that still Tyler DaSilva?
I think so.
He hasn't been pushed into the road yet?
No.
Is that different than your recollection?
Yeah.
And how many figures do you see surrounding him?
Surrounding him?
Yes.
Five.
Do you know who any of those folks are?
Not by this. No.
This is frame 286. That's a little clearer, correct?
Yeah.
Can you identify any of those folks?
The one with his shirt, Alex. The one with the red hat, Michael Sampieri. That's really all I could tell.
Okay. But you would agree that there are at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 figures that we can see in that frame other than Mr. DaSilva on the ground.
Correct.
And you can identify 2 of those?
Yeah.
Do you see Mr. McGrath anywhere?
No.
Now here in frame 307, do you see on the right-hand side of that frame that there are 2 figures, one with a white top and black bottom, one with what appears to be a lighter bottom and a dark top?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
Can you see 2 figures on the far right-hand side of the frame? While this is going on, what we're seeing here, are you watching Mr. DaSilva as he's being attacked?
Yeah.
What are you watching?
I think I was looking at Matt at that point.
You're looking at Matt?
Yeah.
Where was Matt?
I think he was back more, I believe.
You say back.
Like,
Can you show us on the exhibit behind you where Backmore is?
I would just say behind this fight. So I think it was like he was over here more.
Closer to the tree line or closer to the road?
I think closer to the road.
And here we are in frame 333. You see a figure emerging from the right-hand side of the frame?
Yeah.
He's wearing light shoes, a black bottom, and a white shirt.
Yeah.
You know who that is?
I think that's Charlie Connery.
Charlie Connery?
Yeah.
Just before, he was standing with Jimmy McGrath.
Near him, yeah.
Near him?
Yeah.
And Matthew Lokovich as well, right?
Yeah.
You see in frame 345 another figure emerging just behind Charlie Connery.
Yeah.
Who's that?
I have no idea.
You see in frame 355 another figure emerging just behind the figure that you could not identify that's following Charlie Connery.
Yeah.
Who's that?
I think that's
Matt Lokovich?
Yeah.
Do you remember him walking with these other 2 individuals?
walking with them. No. I just remember him walking by, like walking that way, sorry.
Do you agree that he's not behind that fight going on?
Correct.
And do you see here in frame 364 a figure emerge just behind Matt Lokovich, the unidentified individual, and Charlie Connery wearing light bottom, light shoes, and a dark top?
Yeah.
Who that is?
I believe that would be Jimmy.
Do you see in frame 385?
Yeah.
And what was Matthew Lokovich doing at this?
I'm not sure. He kind of just was standing there like that.
Just observing?
Yeah, I think so.
In frame 398, do you know who the individual in the middle is that appears to be pushing someone whose shirt is up?
I can't tell from that.
And do you still see to the right of frame 398 the individual wearing lighter shoes, light bottom, dark top?
Yeah, that'd be Jimmy.
As we go past now on to frame 409, does that appear to be Jimmy to you?
Yeah.
And you see somebody getting pushed out into the road?
Yeah.
And you see another figure in frame 417 that is now passing as Mr. DaSilva gets pushed into the road, do you know?
Correct.
And in frame 427, you see Mr. DaSilva's left hand, correct?
Yeah.
Do you see anything in his left hand?
Not that I can tell him that.
Now, Mr. DaSilva go into the road at frame 457. Mr. DaSilva still in the road at frame 479. Do you see Mr. McGrath?
Not in this picture, no.
Do you see Mr.
No.
Do you see any of those other figures that we had seen before?
No.
Where were they at this point?
On the grass?
And what were they doing?
I'm not sure.
Were you still looking at Jimmy McGrath?
I believe so, yes.
Were you looking at Matthew Lockwood?
I believe Matt, yeah, I
What
was.
was Matt doing?
I think he was watching again.
Where was Michael Samperi at that point?
I have no idea.
Do you know what anybody was doing at that point?
Not that I can recall now.
Here we are at frame 485. See the light shoes, light bottom, dark top?
Yeah.
And do you know who that is?
Jimmy?
And at this point, do you agree he is not facing Tyler DaSilva in the road?
Correct.
And do you see any of the other people from that group?
Not in this picture, no.
And in frame 486, do you still see what you've identified as Jimmy?
Yeah.
And do you see a hand on his lower back?
Yeah.
Do you know whose hand that is?
No, it doesn't even look like a hand.
Can you identify it as a hand now? In 488?
No, I can't.
Can you identify it as a hand now in frame 489?
Appears to be.
Do you know if that's Matthew Lokovich's hand?
I have no idea.
Do you know if Matthew was still standing beside Jimmy at that point?
I believe he was near him at that point, yeah.
And where was Charlie Connery at that point?
Maybe a little bit in front of them.
In front of them?
Yeah, I think so.
And where was Faison Teal at that point?
I'm not sure.
Ryan Hines?
I didn't see Ryan during this.
Tyler Rich?
Not sure.
Mr. DaSilva still in the road in frame 489?
Yes.
Do you see in frame 508 Jimmy McGrath?
Yeah.
And do you see any of the other people?
I don't.
Do you recall what any of the other people were doing at that point?
I don't.
Do you recall what Mr. Valle was doing at that point?
I don't.
Could you see Mr. Valle at that point?
Not at this point, no.
Was somebody blocking your view?
No.
Why could you not see Mr. Valle?
I don't remember.
And it's frame 518 now. Do you see Mr. McGrath is no longer in the frame?
Correct.
Now, frame 528. Do you see Mr. McGrath or part of Mr. McGrath at the left side of the frame?
Yeah.
Do you recall seeing Mr. Valle at that point?
I think he got closer at that point.
Where was Mr. Connery standing at that point?
I don't remember exactly.
Where was Matthew Locke at that point?
I'm not sure exactly.
Were they blocking your view?
No.
How do you know that?
Because I remember I had a clear view.
And can you see Mr. McGrath in frame 532?
Yes.
Frame 533?
Yep.
Frame 534?
Yes.
Frame 535?
Yes.
Now, after seeing that, does that in any way change your recollection of seeing Mr. McGrath standing in one area not involved in the fight?
No.
And you would agree that you did see him from time to time there, moving with a group that included Charlie Connery, an unknown person that you couldn't identify for us, Matthew Lokovich, your boyfriend,
Yes.
Jimmy McGrath,
Yes.
and another individual with black pants and a white top that we saw come across the screen that, again, you couldn't identify.
Yes.
And there were other figures that you couldn't identify as well. But you're certain that you had a clear view of seeing what happened between Mr. Valle and Mr. McGrath,
100% yes.
and that it was just the two of them, correct?
Yes.
And you can't tell us where Mr. Connery or Mr. Lokovich were at that point.
No.
You were dating Mr. Lokovich at this time, correct? And you had grown up, you told us, since childhood with Mr. McGrath.
Yeah.
How well did you know Mr. Connery
Pretty well.
and his family?
Yeah.
Tommy, had you ever been over to their house?
Yeah.
And you didn't call the cops that evening, correct?
I did not.
And you didn't go to talk to the cops, they came to you, correct?
Correct.
And that wasn't until May 23rd, correct?
Yeah.
A little bit more than a week after this all occurred. Had you talked to anybody about what happened that night prior to speaking with the cops?
No.
You hadn't talked to anybody about it?
No.
Not even Matt?
No.
And you wouldn't want to see Jimmy McGrath's memory or reputation damaged in any way, would you?
No.
You wouldn't want to see any harm come to Matthew Lokovich, even though you're not with Matthew Lokovich anymore, correct?
Correct.
And Charlie Connery, you wouldn't want to see any harm come to him, right?
Right.
And you've come here and you've tried to tell us, to the best of your recollection, what you saw that evening, correct?
Correct.
Nothing further. Thank you.
Couple questions, Your Honor. Morning, Taylor. So the defense attorney asked you just moments ago regarding, you saw a video frame by frame of states with defense to be, where he had asked you on multiple occasions where people were standing. To your recollection, you had some indication of where you saw people, but for the most part, you were not able to indicate where everyone was.
Correct.
From your best recollection, was Jimmy involved at all, from what you can recall that night, in the fight?
No.
When the fight was going on, Taylor, where was Jimmy standing from your vantage point? Where was Jimmy standing where you were?
Diagonal from me.
And the whole time he was standing in that general location, you indicated that he moved around a little bit, but for the most part, was he standing in that general location?
Yeah, stayed in that same area for majority of the time.
When counsel showed you the frame by frame of defense B, are you able to indicate at all for sure who those individuals were who were wearing a dark shirt and a light bottom?
No, it was dark. You can't even see their faces in those frames.
Do you recall offhand as you sit here today if anyone else at the party was wearing dark shirt and light bottoms that night?
No, I wasn't focused on everyone's outfits.
And it's difficult to recall each and every individual, what they were wearing, where they were standing. But from that night, what are you 100% sure you witnessed that night?
I watched the defendant go up to Jimmy and stab Jimmy.
And when you witnessed the defendant go up and stab Jimmy, as you indicated on direct examination, do you recall if anyone else was standing directly next to Jimmy at that point?
No.
Was anyone else, as defense counsel indicated, putting his arm around Jimmy or in close proximity to Jimmy at that point? When the defendant came up to Jimmy, was it a purposeful stabbing?
Yes.
When the defendant came up to Jimmy, was there any hesitation that you saw in him stabbing Jimmy?
No.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
I think it's a very good time. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we are going to go ahead and have one more witness to call his speech. Court will stand in recess